Hello, and welcome to the Authentically Elisa podcast, Unmasking Your True Self. I'm Elisa Boogaerts, your guide on this journey to discovering the most genuine version of yourself. Each episode is a step towards unveiling the incredible power that lies within you as we strip away all the shoulds and shine a light on the coulds. Together we'll explore the path of self-empowerment, self-confidence, and the courage to be unapologetically you. Thank you for being here. All right, let's dive into today's episode. We're going to talk about listening because sometimes what you said is not what I heard. And today I have an amazing guest with me, Sherry Darden, who is a former accountant gone HR and a former corporate leader gone entrepreneur. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Elisa.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. So have you ever experienced a time where you were not authentically yourself, and how did you overcome it?
I think part of being the youngest of four children, both my parents were educators, and so they were both degreed. Both had their master's degree by the time that I was born. And I just remember having that talk. And that talk is, like, what do you want to be? What are you thinking of being? And I think I was a freshman in high school, maybe even a sophomore. And I was in the kitchen, and I had cooked and was cleaning up and all that good stuff. And my mom was sitting on a stool in a little cubby in our kitchen. And I told her that my vision was to be a culinary chef, have a little bistro, because I love all things food, even my video games and all the things are food centric. And I just remember her saying, giving me kudos and said, you're a wonderful cook. Your stuff is beautiful. You cook with love and all that good stuff, but absolutely positively not. We have lawyers in the family. We have IT, valedictorian, Northwestern grad, all of these things. And again, two parents that were educators. So it was going to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, something of profession. Her not realizing that, people have to cook. And so I think that was my first, okay, I got to choose something. And I think it must have been sophomore year in high school because I was taking accounting. And I'm like, okay, it's good. I can balance and all of that good stuff. And so that was my first, it really wasn't me. And I will say that even translated into taking an extra year to graduate from college. And at that time, by the time I reached my senior year, it's like, I really kind of loved sales and marketing, people oriented. And so I think that was the first kind of aha of being inauthentic. And I'm sure if I was on someone's couch, I could probably go back further of that. This was kind of, for my adulthood, that was kind of my pivotal of I really wasn't living my authentic self. And I just remember I used to work for Marriott and getting that performance evaluation. It's like, Sherry, you're great at this, you're great at that, you're great at this. And, the room for improvement is like, we just can never find you. Because I was always with sales and catering because I wanted to do the authentic thing. Again, hospitality. That's what I loved doing. And so I think that was my first, now looking back, that was my first really true inauthentic moment that I did what others thought I should do versus what was really truly in my heart.
Yeah. And I think that's like quite common in so many people. We do tick the box of life. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And
Yes.
And then we end up having to make this big pivot. And so you made a pivot from corporate to entrepreneurship?
Yes. So in 1999, I was working for a mortgage company. And again, numbers person, I always know 1 + 1 = 2. Always, 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 no matter what the books say. And so sometimes we would hit our numbers, within the mortgage industry, and sometimes we didn't. And I was really confused why I was getting high fives. And I was like, we missed our numbers. Now, while I wasn't, punishable offense, but I'm like, why is your reaction kind of contradictory to, the numbers? And make a long story short, two sets of numbers. And the president of the mortgage company was kind of like a Richard Gere in Pretty Woman. Richard Gere bought companies to break them down. And so this is what I found out my boss was doing. And so being my authentic self, I had gone and found myself another job, and my staff turned me in. They said, Sherry's taking longer lunches and she's dressing nice. instead of the business casual, and kind of put two and two together. And I just said to him, kind of make a long story short, that I knew what was going on. And I told him I was too pretty to go to jail because I'm cute and I have all my teeth and I'm not going to jail for anybody. And so I was really, that pivotal moment was, I'm really not doing what I want to do. Yes, I'm making money, but I'm not doing what I want to do. Financially, I was in a really great spot. And I said, it's going to be now or never to jump out into that entrepreneurial space. Because also, too, being inauthentic is jumping from job to job, saying I have loyalty and they don't with you. So it was either downsizing or going out of business and all that good stuff. So I took a leap of faith and I started my business. I'd had some bumps and some bruises. I've
Mm.
had some industry changes and all of that good stuff. And I don't call them failures. I call them lessons learned. We're thinking about being authentic to ourselves. We have to be kind to ourselves when we're being authentic, and taking the positive of, but what did I learn from this? And what can I take on to the next thing? And so, yeah, so I have been out on my own since 1999. I've taken a couple of one trip back to corporate America. It just didn't work. It didn't work. I love it. It's no small feat to be an entrepreneur, but it's something I absolutely love. Absolutely love.
Tell us what you do and how you help people.
So throughout all of the things, so I went from being an accountant to getting into the HR. So I went back to school and got a degree in human resources management because I love people. And so being authentic is, I am a giver. I am a giver. I'm an empath. Sometimes I wish I wasn't. Man, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You got to go and you got to go and purge, their stuff and your stuff and all of that good stuff. But it's a gift. So again, being authentic. I think the more we are not authentic to ourselves, the more we delay our purpose, the more we delay our happiness,
Mm.
regardless of what other people say. Because sometimes being an empath is taking on what people think. Like my mom, you're going to be that doctor or lawyer. And so, what I do now in the corporate field is I really help leaders who have dysfunction. And usually the dysfunction comes from communication errors. So I take them so that what they form as a form of communication is in a form that their team can understand, and so that they can be understood. Because a lot of conflict comes from, you could be saying the same thing. I've sat in a corner with a CEO who was my client and one of her board members, and it's almost starting to sound like the housewives, arguments. And I finally had to say that whole empath, it just stressed me out. And I said, time out. I said, do you realize that you're saying the same thing? You're just
Nope.
not listening. But they
Right.
were saying it because their communication styles were different. They were doing what's called the golden rule. And the golden rule we've all been raised with is treat people the way you want to be treated.
Mm.
It's nice, but that's not authentic. If you really want to be authentically, if you're really wanting to work with people and serve them, you treat people the way they want to be treated. Because I might like bullet points. And you
Right.
may want to, let's talk about the weather, let's talk about how we're feeling, all of that good stuff. So if I come to you and start right out the gate, start talking about tasks and let's just get to the bottom point, you've shut down because I didn't reach you at that personal level that you needed to be reached initially. And then we can get to the business stuff. And let's
Right.
switch the role. You want to communicate with me, and I've got a timeline. I'm looking at my clock. We got 20 minutes, and you're talking about housewives, or you're talking about the weather, or the
Or
latest book that you've
my
written.
neighbor or something, my neighbor's dog that you don't care
Yes,
about.
yes. And my face is melting off. And often, if we're listening, you're also looking at body language. So, probably what's going to happen to me is my nostrils are going to flare. I may yawn a little bit. My lips may be a little pursed. My eyes may go. So, when we're talking about being authentic, so if you really wanted to serve me, you would listen to my body language. And when we talk about being authentic, we have to listen. Only 5% of what you're receiving from me today is through my actual words. You're looking at my body language, you're looking at my facial expressions, the speed, the pitch, the tone, all of that comes into listening to make sure that you respond versus react. So that's what I do. And I also do that with individuals because oftentimes we react, which is just kind of like a knee jerk when we talk about when the doctor hits your knee, you don't have time to think about it. Your body just does that versus respond, meaning, sometimes let's say I've got kittens, they may nibble at me. Well, it's not so painful enough. And I've learned that they nibble that I don't react. I kind of respond of going, okay, they want to get my attention. I'm going to look down and I'm going to serve them.
Right.
Versus a reaction would be pain, get rid of pain and maybe, tap them on the nose and that kind of thing. So that's what I do with corporate leaders. And that's what I do with individuals. We work one-on-one. I work one-on-one with people and they're like, I don't understand why I'm not being heard or I'm not being understood because part of being authentic and people's frustration is I don't feel like I'm heard.
Yeah.
During the great resignation era, a lot of people are like, I'm leaving because I just don't feel like I'm heard. Well, but are you conveying the right message? Are you letting them know how you want to be treated, reached, and talked to? So that's what I do in a nutshell on different things, whether it's coaching or whether it's training. I use DISC as a tool because
Tell us
DISC
about
is
that.
not a person. Yeah, it's not a personality assessment
Yeah.
because it's not Myers Briggs. It kind of gets lumped in there. It is a communication and behavioral assessment and tool.
Oh.
So again, kind of like I was giving you that instance of if I'm, bullet point. So if I say to you in all our conversations, well, the big picture is, bottom line and getting to the point, I'm just using those as catchphrases there. You would be listening to that knowing, you know what, when I send Sherry an email, it's not going to be War and Peace. If I really want Sherry to open up my email, I'm going to say what I want in the title line. Okay. Versus you, and I'm just using you as an example of what we would call an I, which is an influencer, which is that personal touch, that cheerleader, that person that gets everyone together. Um, I would say just checking in the title. Because it's not, hi, Lisa, how are you? Hope you had a great Wednesday, or what's today? Happy hump day. Hope your day is going well. It's hot here in Dallas, or whatever the situation is, and then get to the point. I'm going to be able to open up the gates so that whatever else I have to say to you, you'll be able to receive it.
Right. Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
So that's what DISC does. It really does. It helps you figure out the language of the other person and what motivates them. What I mean by behavior, what motivates them. Is it more task driven or is it more people driven? Is it more task focused or is it more people focused? And so that's what DISC does. And so that's kind of a tool that I use with everyone so that I know how to communicate with you.
Yeah.
So any other problems or tasks or challenges that we need to solve, I can do it in a proper manner versus always getting stuck with misunderstandings. So that's what I do.
I love that. And it's like, and it only takes, like an extra 30 seconds or something out of your day in which to actually just be like, who am I talking to? How do they like to be spoken to? Right. So that you can actually be heard by them and just being like, okay, like all I have to do, like I remember I lived in London, England. And it's like a cultural thing. So of course, everybody has their own individual thing, but as a culture, it was very much, you had to be like, hi, how are you? How are the kids? Hope you're well. Like you had to have an intro. If you didn't, it was like, oh, that's a bit rude. And you're sort of like ostracized for it. And I remember because for me, I was very much just like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Like, I would just get straight to the point because I just like, I don't know, I was like, I'm trying to be efficient. And
Yes,
that
yes.
culture, it took me a while to do that. And I would write my email and I'd be like, before I press send, go back up to the top. Then I would put in the niceties. Just because, yeah, but it took a bit of training. And I remember a friend of mine, she lived in Ireland, and the Irish love to say goodbye about 100 times before they hang up the phone. Like, okay, bye. Yes, okay, bye, bye. So, bye, bye, bye. And we're just like, bye. Like, say bye before
Yeah,
I
right.
hang up. But like she said that she had to do that. Like, you have to just like, yeah, okay, just we're gonna say bye about 100 different times. So yeah, you kind of learn these nuances, and yeah, like you're saying, that each person kind of has them. So it's good to.
And what you probably also too found is when you crafted that email and you said, wait, let me go back up and do that. What you did is that you realized who you were sending it to, but you also didn't change who you were Because then if you were with yourself and your authentic self with your friends and family members, or you're initiating, you're still your authentic self. Because if you were to try and what we call code switching, which is sometimes it's meant in a different way for different people. So for me as an African American, maybe I would talk differently with my African American friends versus
Right.
my Caucasian friends versus my Catholic friends, that kind of code switching, meaning that you're kind of assimilating. It's not that, because a lot of times people will say, well, this is, do I have to change who I am? No, but you're just adapting how you communicate. Because here's what I'm going to say to my authentic people and staying authentic with yourself. The most effective and highly impactful people in the world, whether you like them or not, have the ability to listen to their audience and respond, not react, respond in a way so that what they said is being heard versus, what you said is not what I heard. I heard something totally different.
Yeah.
you know I had a client where just real quick, I'm verbose, because you can tell I'm chatty, and I'm a high I, which is your influencer in disc. And I didn't realize, didn't do my homework, I don't always eat my own cooking, that she was a D. So I had compiled 3 years pro forma, financial statements, all that good stuff, so that she could obtain 8 figures to build out 24,000 square feet. So the numbers had to be on point, all that good stuff. I sent her everything that I had, told her, make sure you look here. I wanted to make sure that she was comfortable with what I did. I get a response back from her with THX. And I had to look at it. And I was like, I didn't even get a thank you. I didn't get a THANKS. I got a THX. So
Even when you said that, it took me a while. I'm like, what does that mean?
yes,
Oh, dang.
that's an abbreviation, because we abbreviate everything. We just cannot. And so I reacted, which is different from responding. I reacted by sending her another email going, did you see that I did it? Because I was looking for an I response.
Right.
And again, to eat my own cooking, I said, wait a minute, Sherry, what did she say? So what I learned is she was a D. So if I got and so when I said, but did you see? I got a yep. So what I learned, this is a person who's a D, which most of our CEOs. So if we're talking about everyone out here, trying to solicit contracts or work with people, usually the higher the level they are, the higher the D, because they look at the big picture. Bill Gates said, I don't know how to, I don't know how to code, the next office, such and such. He said, if I get bogged down in that minutia, he's on, whatever year we're in now, he's thinking 3 years ahead. So it's the
Right.
big picture. So I had to learn that her 3-letter responses were good. And if she needed anything more from me, she would come and ask me. Because if I would continue to force more of a reaction from her, I would have lost my connection. So I'm
Right.
still authentic to who I am, but we also too need to be authentic to who we're working with as well too. And that's kind of what I do. And I kind of help do that through DISC.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that. So is there
Okay.
anything like last little nugget, golden nugget that you want to share with our listeners?
Um, I think I'm going to ask the listeners to implement asking. Ask, ask. When you're being authentic to yourself, ask for what you need, and ask for what you need in the way that you need it. So we want to start that platinum rule, because sometimes we don't know. Sometimes people miss and they don't get it. We send cross signals. So ask for what you want. But then also, too, when you're on the receiving end of communication, ask for clarification. If nothing else, rephrase what they've said to you. Because oftentimes people will do that to me. So you said, oh, no, 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 I didn't mean that. Because we're kind of thinking 2 responses ahead, and it
Right.
kind of brings us back to not have that misinformation. So ask on both ends. Ask for what you want, and then ask that other person what they need, and ask it through paraphrasing and making sure that we understand, because you don't want to say what you heard is not what I said on that. We want it to be what you said is what I heard. So that's the objective.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it's so true because no one can know sort of how you work. Really. So if you're just sort of upfront with it and can just say it and ask what you want, be like, hey, this is kind of how I work. And they get an insight into that. And that like immediately will start you off on a better footing than anything else. And
and
yeah,
not take
asking
it
those,
personally.
right.
Yes.
Not take it personally. That's so important. And I love the clarifying too, because I don't know how many times I've been like, we were talking about this subject and somehow they're on this subject, but I'm still talking about the first one and they're in the second one. And we're like, not, it was like, what is going on right now? Right. So like ask the question. Yeah.
I am guilty of that too. And so what I have learned, because I'm learning myself, and I know if I'm about to get off on a tangent or ooh shiny, I'll go shiny moment, switching channels, and kind of let them know that I am kind of switching channels. That's another word. Switching channels if you're going to go off on a tangent, because sometimes it happens because we think about things. So yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely love it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast
Well,
and sharing your wisdom about listening and the different languages that we speak, basically. I really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it inspired you to live a more authentic life. I'd love your help in inspiring more people to live authentically. So please follow, rate, and leave a review so we can create a ripple effect of authenticity. Until next time, stay true to you, be bold, and thrive on your own terms. This is Elisa, signing off authentically.